Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Girl with an Art History Degree podcast. I'm Hannah, girl with the art history degree, and it's late. It's very late. I watched the presidential debate between Trump and Biden tonight, and wow, that was definitely an interesting hour and a half to watch in the most Minnesota sense of the word. Just interesting. I hope y'all tuned in if you could watch it. I'm very much looking forward to the next debate, that's for sure. I think we gotta kind of figure a lot of things out. But yeah, so good day, long day, a lot of things going on. But I just wanted to hop on here real quick and give y'all a brief update about the podcast and kind of some changes that are going to be happening, and also kind of what to expect from episodes and Instagram and the content going forward. So if you listen to the intro episode, you'll recall that my plan for the podcast was to release a new episode every single Tuesday and have these episodes kind of range from short 15-20 minute introductions to various topics to more in-depth kind of hour-long episodes that really focused in on a particular artist or movement, body of work, an object, etc., all these things. And that was kind of going to be it. You know, I wasn't planning on posting much on Instagram except when I did an episode. But over the last few weeks, as I've been listening to more art history podcasts and spending time on Instagram, looking into what topics I want to do episodes on, and kind of reflecting on and praying about my intentions and goals for the podcast, and researching artists and whatnot. And last week, last week, the Lord was definitely teaching me humility and radical surrender. A lot of things happened last week. My Our Lady of Guadalupe medal, which is one of my most favorite, most sentimental Catholic items, broke off my necklace. So yeah, that happened. I couldn't make it to my small group. Couldn't get my, ADD medication from the pharmacy because of tech problems for some reason. Yeah, just a lot of things. Spent a lot of time with Jesus in adoration, and yeah. Oh, also, I don't know if you can see on the video, my glasses broke last week, and I had to super glue them back together so I could wear them until I make it to the eye doctor to get my eyes checked. But there's now super glue all over the lenses because, clearly I couldn't not make a mess with it all. So yeah, I don't know. Life this week is just like throwing it all out there. But yeah, so I've just done a lot of kind of thinking and reflecting and have a much better and clearer sense of where I want to take things with the podcast, and the amount of work I can practically commit to given my current living situation and work responsibilities, and also just the kind of content and material I want to make available for you as listeners, or I guess viewers if you're watching on YouTube, to engage with and learn from. So I'm going to be changing a couple things and then also adding a few new components to kind of all that the Girl with a History Degree podcast is going to be. So for the biggest change, I'm going to be transitioning to releasing new longer episodes every other week. Yeah, I'm gonna shoot for Tuesday, but it also might be Wednesday or Friday. Again, just working full time and living at home with my family. There's 14 other people in the house, 7 of whom are in elementary and middle school. So my schedule has to be somewhat flexible, just with homeschooling and pickups and homework and dinner and all these things, and also just life. Like things come up when you least expect them to, and often when it's not the most opportune time. And if you have kids at home or a lot of siblings, you know this all too well. You can't really plan everything out in life, and even if you try to, something happens and plans have to change, and you just kind of have to lean into it and offer it up and hope for the best. So yeah, all of that, and I guess also another factor in kind of spreading things out. I'm not really like a work ahead kind of person, I guess. And like, I'm not going to just sit down and record the next 3 episodes in one sitting and then hang out for a month. That doesn't really fit kind of the approach that I want to take with the podcast, or how I approach learning in general outside of the podcast, whether that's with art history or Catholic studies or politics, religion, whatever else. I'm very intentional about kind of every stage of the process from start to finish, particularly when it comes to something that I'm passionate about or invested in. And so, once I kind of like settle on a topic or have an assignment to do, I spend a lot of time doing research and reading books and articles, finding images, looking at maps, all the things, just trying to get a really strong kind of contextual understanding and framework that I can work with. And then I spend time just kind of like sitting with the information and images that I've found. And after I've done kind of all this preliminary groundwork, so to speak, I can start to kind of craft this picture and this story that I want to share, which can then be organized into a complete podcast episode, or, at least that's always the goal. Yeah, I do have some kind of perfectionist tendencies when it comes to my work, and that's just like on a personal level and how my brain works, and also spiritually, and just trying to live out Colossians 3:23. So yeah, I have a good sense of when something isn't kind of where it needs to be, isn't right, hasn't kind of hit the mark, I guess, or doesn't convey the whole picture that's been kind of completed or revealed in my head. So yeah, I spend a lot of time with these things. It sounds like a lot and it's pretty intense, but yeah, that's just how it works. So yeah, bottom line, back to the point, I'm going to try to be as consistent and kind of on schedule as possible going forward with the podcast, and just want to thank y'all for being patient with me as I kind of make my way on this journey and juggle work and family life and this kind of outpouring of my God-given passion. So I appreciate y'all for sticking with me and hanging out for all of this. So yeah, now seems like a good time to remind you to turn on your notifications so that you don't miss out on any new episodes. So if you're watching on YouTube, you can just hit the subscribe button and tap the little bell so you can be notified. And I don't think there's a way to be notified on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or things like that, but if you follow me on Instagram at Girl with an Art History Degree, you can tap the following button and then turn on notifications on there, and then you can be notified when I post about new episodes or share other content, things like that. Yeah, and I guess that kind of leads me to my next point for this update. So between these kind of longer episodes, which are again probably going to be like about an hour long, that's the ideal, I'll be releasing, sharing, recording, whatever you want to call it, some shorter 10, 15, 20-minute episodes of, I'm guessing, kind of, I'm categorizing them into 3 different types. So one of the biggest things that I felt was seriously lacking in the content that I was curating for the podcast was the Catholic component, which is kind of the other half of my bachelor's degree and this really core part of my life and identity. And I was thinking kind of at first that I would just focus on art history and museum studies and would just bring in Catholicism when it seemed relevant. But there aren't really any art history podcasts or Instagram pages even that teach art history in conjunction with or in light of a really strong, informed, and non-negatively biased knowledge of religion and Christianity. And I want to get real here. There's also just this unfortunate reality in academia. And yeah, I know this just from personal experience, but also from talking with professionals in art history and in academia in general who are devout Catholics, that being open and really fully embracing your religious values, especially when you're Catholic, is too often kind of seen as not acceptable or legitimate, maybe, or appropriate kind of in this academic setting. And we hear this phrase a lot right now, like the dogma lives loudly in you. And just because the dogma lives loudly in someone, the expectation or conclusion should not be that their faith somehow disqualifies them from being successful in their profession, or they can't do their job well or contribute greatly and significantly to their field or to the classroom, even if you're just a student. This just isn't something that needs to be contradictory to our aspects of life. And like, I remember when I was a sophomore in my third semester of college classes, I had the opportunity to sit down and chat with one of the most successful female Catholic art historians out there, a woman that I have looked up to since I was in high school. And I just asked her, like, what advice she had for an aspiring art historian who is strong in her faith. And she told me, like, in all honesty and sincerity, that I'm just gonna have to fake it till I make it, probably. And that, once I am kind of established in the field and, I have my kind of tenure laid out and things are all kind of set up, then I can do what I want, say what I want, be who I am. But before then, it'll kind of only be hurting myself if I'm open about it and embrace it fully in the public square, because people in academia won't really like it all that much, aren't really warm to it, won't respond well to it, and people will just kind of look at you and your work in a different light. And I know at the time that was really kind of a disheartening thing to hear, and I shouldn't have to be told as a second year college student with these big aspirations of becoming an art history professor and having a really strong open faith that I should prepare to experience such things in my career. But I needed to hear it. It was a very eye-opening conversation to have, and chatting with her and sharing our experiences and discussing all these kinds of things. Our conversation was not only negative, like, we talked for half an hour. It was a very fruitful exchange, but the things she said about being Catholic in art history in such a field, it made me become much more perceptive of and honest with myself when such issues would happen. I wasn't so quick to brush it off and just be like, oh, well, they didn't mean it like that, they just don't understand, or if only they knew I, believe this or this, things like this. And as I got kind of farther into my degree and academic career and started taking a broader range of classes and working on other projects, I noticed precisely what she said to me. If you're very open, if you don't keep your values kind of, hush hush in the closet, the opportunities that you have access to or that you want to take on can become much more limited. The people who want to work with you, or vice versa, becomes a smaller pool, and unfortunately even your friend group can get smaller. Your colleagues, people who you study alongside, work alongside, it can become this kind of rift in relationships, which is so unfortunate. And depending on, like, what university you attend, your experience may be completely different. I sincerely hope it is. I'm deeply, deeply sorry if this has been your experience as well. And if this is something that you're struggling with right now, if you're a college student who's Catholic, in any field, it doesn't have to be art history, but this is something you're struggling with and you'd like to talk about it, definitely 100% feel free to reach out. I would love to be a listening ear and just chat with you and encourage you in whatever ways I can. I don't want to just kind of sound like a negative Nelly the whole episode or update, whatever this is. And I'm not trying to say any of this, I guess, to condemn art history or deter you from art history or from pursuing a career in academia. If you are a devoutly religious person, it's not at all my goal, but I do think this is a phenomena that we need to be aware of and that we need to call out and condemn, and that we all need to work together to try and stop, because it shouldn't be happening, especially not in an environment where students should be able to just be students, learning and growing, and not have to kind of be on defense all the time. And so hopefully one of the things I can do with the podcast going forward is to really help dismantle and reject these stereotypes and biases, just kind of this general resistance to Christianity, and try and really break down this idea that its relationship with and kind of role within the field of art history is somehow an undesirable one, because these things belong in the field just as much as any other discipline. I mean, just as much as history does, as politics, cultural studies, business, psychology, economics, ethics, you name it. I mean, it's all important and essential and relevant to studying art throughout the entire history of the world. And so, yeah, I think it's important for me that going forward, I make sure to kind of carve out this space to have conversations and share about the interconnected and coexisting and mutually beneficial relationship between the arts and Christianity throughout history and into today. So, yeah, I'm going to start doing shorter episodes on kind of all sorts of topics relating to Christianity and Catholicism. I'll do some episodes on different feast days and solemnities in the Catholic calendar, and essentially what that'll look like. Say it's a particular saint's feast day, I'll kind of tell the story of his or her life and then discuss their unique iconography, how you can kind of recognize them in art, and kind of show some examples of how they've been represented in art over time. And then if it's a day like a dedication, it's like the dedication of the Lateran Basilica in Rome is coming up in, I think, early November, either like the second or first week. I don't remember exactly. It's like on that dedication day, I'll share about the history and reconstruction of the Lateran and the role it played kind of throughout the church's history as the first major destination for pilgrims who were entering Rome from the south of Italy. And also, it's the official cathedral of Rome. It's where the cathedra, or the seat of the bishop, is located, which in this case is the Pope, actually, since he is the official bishop of Rome. A lot of people assume it's the Vatican because, Vatican, Pope, Vatican City. But it's actually the Lateran. So, there's a fun fact, and now you can get excited for an episode on the Lateran in the future. But then I'll also be doing episodes on, I guess you could say, more random topics. I don't know, just kind of a broader range that aren't kind of centered around or structured around a calendar of feast days or anything. But these will kind of be just a wide range of topics. I think, just to give a couple examples, the veneration of relics in the Catholic Church and the Catholic history of the Catholic faith is something that's very near and dear to my heart and my faith, as it is for many Catholics, But as I learned this January, it's a very, very misunderstood tradition of our faith. So I'll probably be sharing about that soon, maybe around Halloween. We'll see what happens. Yeah. Another thing I'm super interested in and intrigued by is why baptistry buildings were constructed outside of churches up until kind of through the start of the Renaissance, and kind of the significance of sacred space for the faithful throughout the first, 1400 years of the church, and how architecture can reveal to us the kind of lived practice and experience of faith and religious and liturgical traditions. So yeah. And I'm guessing also things like iconoclasm, super fascinating. Icons, also fascinating. The Vatican museums, that whole start, their function and purpose. The church as a patron of the arts. That's probably a better, longer episode, actually. That's a whole can of worms right there. But, church architecture in general, priestly vestments, official church or kind of papal documents about artists and the arts, all these kinds of things. It's going to kind of cover a lot of things. And then, I guess, kind of in addition to incorporating shorter episodes about Christianity, I'll also be kind of recording shorter episodes about art history and museum studies related topics. So in terms of art history, these will be more kind of introductions to artists, different works of art, objects or cultural sites, various artistic and architectural styles and movements, terms, methods, all these kinds of things. And then in terms of museum studies, I'll cover a wide range of topics like different types of museums, display styles, visitor identities, museum jobs and structures, the history of different museums, like when the Met was started or, the Louvre, all these kinds of fun things. Collections, conservation and preservation, accessioning and deaccessioning of objects, issues relating to ethics and patronage and provenance, all fascinating things. Critical visiting, yeah, all sorts of fun stuff, super exciting. And then the third, I guess, type of short episode I'm going to be doing is just a kind of mix of other light fare and hot topics, I guess. So things like book and movie recommendations and reviews, conversation with friends, maybe travel experiences, current events, personal life. Basically anything that doesn't fit in the other two categories is kind of fair game here. Yeah, we'll see what happens with that. So yeah, I guess that's kind of all. That's what's up with the podcast and all the updates and changes I thought y'all should know about. Essentially, things are just going to be a lot more fluid going forward, and you'll also just have a more kind of constant, steady stream of content that you can engage with. So yeah, I'm excited. I think the changes make things a bit more accessible for the average person. I know an hour-long episode of anything can be somewhat intimidating, especially if you're not a regular podcast listener or YouTube watcher. So hopefully these all sound like good improvements and will be beneficial to you as listeners. So yeah, I probably should close there. I think this went way longer than I expected it to, so it's a good thing I'm not on a time limit, I guess. Thanks for hanging around and listening, checking in on where things are going to be going now, and yeah, I just hope you're as excited for kind of this new schedule podcast style and all the things that are on the way yet to come as I am. So yeah. And then also, by the way, you will be releasing the episode on Caravaggio by the end of the week. I was gonna have it ready by today, since it's definitely past midnight, so it was yesterday his birthday. But I made the mistake, as I often do, of buying a 450-page biography on Caravaggio, and definitely have gotten sidetracked reading that over the last week, but it's been good. I definitely have kind of progressed, I would say, beyond the honeymoon stage of my art history crush on Caravaggio, which is good. This is definitely a tangent, but I think it's funny. So I don't know if any of you have seen 10 Things I Hate About You with Heath Ledger and Julia Stiles. If you haven't seen it, please go watch it. It's like one of my favorite kind of old rom-coms to watch, and I mean it's Heath Ledger too, so like what's not to love about that? But there's this scene in the movie where Cameron's best friend goes to kind of get intel from Kat's friend so Cameron can take Kat's sister to the prom. I don't know. A lot of drama. I don't know. But he like walks up to her and she's standing at her locker getting her books, and he's like trying to be all sly and cool, and like notices that she has a Shakespeare sonnet kind of taped up in her locker, and so he kind of leans over and is like, so you're a fan of Shakespeare, I see. And she just kind of looks over at him like, why are you talking to me? Like, what is this? And just kind of like glances like, fine, and says, I'm more than a fan. We're involved. And just like, I don't know. I feel like that's kind of the level that I've reached with Caravaggio now. So yeah. Sorry to keep you all waiting on it, but it's been a great week in that regard, and it's gonna be a super awesome episode. And yeah, this is like a Minnesota goodbye right here. So I think I should actually close there, and yeah, again, be sure to like, follow, subscribe, rate, review, all the things you can do, I don't know, to the podcast. Make sure you follow me on Instagram at Girl with an Art History Degree